In Singapore's history, few moments stand out as stark reminders of how fragile peace can be. The racial riots of 1964 and 1969, two dark chapters that nearly tore a young nation apart. To understand these riots, we have to go back. In the early 1960s, Singapore faced immense challenges: poverty, unemployment, political unrest, and deep-seated racial tensions, especially between Malays and Chinese. On 16 September 1963, Singapore merged with Malaysia. But the union was rocky from the start. Political disagreements, economic rivalries, and issues about race and privilege surfaced. By mid-1964, tensions in Singapore were running dangerously high. There was growing distrust between communities, fueled by political rhetoric, economic hardship, and fears of racial discrimination. On 21 July 1964, Singapore's Muslim community came together to celebrate the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, the festival known as Maulidur Rasul. The celebration was grand. An estimated 25,000 Malays and Muslims gathered at the Padang, Singapore's historic open field, the heart of civic life. Leading figures from the Singapore Muslim community, dignitaries, and ordinary citizens all participated. After the prayers and speeches, a procession was formed marching through the streets. But somewhere along the route, a clash broke out between members of the Malay procession and groups of Chinese bystanders. The Singapore government later traced the outbreak of violence to political agitation by Malay UMNO activists, led by then UMNO Secretary-General Jaafar Albar. In the months leading up to the riots, Jaafar Albar had been delivering inflammatory speeches, accusing the People's Action Party government of discriminating against Malays in Singapore, denying them the special privileges enjoyed by Malays in Malaysia. What began as political provocation quickly spiraled into bloodshed. Street fights broke out, shops were set on fire, homes were looted, public buses were attacked. The violence spread like wildfire across districts such as Geylang, Kampong Glam, and Chinatown. The Singapore government moved swiftly. A curfew was imposed, first across selected districts, then island-wide. The first curfew lasted from 9:30 p.m. on 21st July, and curfews continued intermittently for the next 10 days. Thousands of police officers, special constabulary units, and even army troops were deployed to restore order. Riot squads conducted sweeps of troubled areas. Roadblocks were set up. Patrols were strengthened. Over 3,000 people were arrested in connection with rioting, looting, and violating curfews. By the end of the violence, 23 people had lost their lives, and more than 450 were injured. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent on emergency relief, food, shelter, and medical aid. Families were displaced. Trust between communities was shattered. Community leaders, Malay, Chinese, Indian, came together to plead for calm. Religious organizations, grassroots groups, and the government launched massive public campaigns promoting racial harmony. Slowly, painfully, peace returned. But the wounds ran deep, and in 1965, just a year later, Singapore was expelled from Malaysia.
Every time we look back on this moment when we signed this agreement which severed Singapore from Malaysia, it will be a moment of anguish. For me, it is a moment of anguish because all my life I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories.
On 9th of August 1965, Singapore became an independent nation. You might think the troubles ended there. But in 1969, tensions flared again. In May 1969, violent race riots broke out in Kuala Lumpur and other parts of Malaysia, following controversial election results. The violence spilled over into Singapore. Although smaller in scale, Singapore witnessed fresh outbreaks of racial clashes. Singapore's leaders acted fast. They deployed police and army units, imposed curfews, launched public campaigns urging unity. And this time, Singapore avoided large-scale bloodshed. From those difficult years, Singapore learned a painful but powerful lesson, that racial harmony is not automatic. It has to be protected, nurtured, fought for. Today, racial and religious harmony is one of Singapore's core values. But it wasn't always this way. Behind the peace we see now lies the memory of hard times, and the determination never to go back.